Like, if I'm interested in Deshaun Watson, I'm not leaking it to my favorite NFL reporter. Hey, we're interested in Deshaun Watson, because you don't want the price to go up. You don't want it's a competitive disadvantage. So
Yeah.
any of that stuff comes from the agents and the team itself. And Houston, of course, is going to want people to think, yeah, 18 teams are interested in anybody who doesn't have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert is going to be interested in. So there's a lot of that that's put out there. Now,
McMullen and McDonald here with Young Birds 365. Let's make this a threesome. Joining Birds 365 from the Gold Coast of Florida, formerly of South Philadelphia, Associated Press national football writer, Mr. Rob Maaddi. Maaddi, man, where were you last night at 7:15?
Probably writing about Tom Brady, and at 8:15, and at 9:15, and at 6:15.
Well, we knew it was coming, Rob. That's why we said, let's get Rob Maaddi tomorrow. We knew it was coming. No, we had no idea.
Had no idea. Sometimes better to be lucky than good.
The hints were dropping, though. The hints were dropping. It seemed like he wasn't. I knew all along that he wanted to play, and I think it was just a matter of Tom having to convince Giselle to give him her blessing and not file divorce papers or whatever the ramifications would have been. And maybe it took 40 days for him to do that, but it happened. He's back. He's still at the top of his game, which is incredible at 44, going on 45 years old.
Yeah, it really is. And you mentioned the fact that I think we've seen it here in Philadelphia locally with Jason Kelce. A lot of times people have to take a step back after season. They don't realize the grind it takes. But when you're at the level of Tom Brady, everybody wants to know right now, 10 minutes after, you lose to the Los Angeles Rams. But as far as the whispers, Rob, about Tom potentially going somewhere else, and, people said San Francisco, and obviously he's from there. He loves the area, always wanted to be there, at least early in his career. Was there anything to any of that Tom was trying to finagle his way out of Tampa Bay to play somewhere else?
I have no definitive information that says that he was trying to do that. But I will tell you, I spoke to some people who were starting to get that feeling. And then, boom, he's out and watching Manchester United with the Glazer family, and the next day he's returning to the Buccaneers. You will not hear now, in hindsight, anyone's going to be able to report that was the case, because it won't look good for the Buccaneers or Tom Brady. So if that really was Tom's thinking, that maybe I'll wait until the Buccaneers bring in someone who is expensive enough that they can't reverse the decision, whether it's Russell Wilson was traded, so it's not going to be him. If they bring in Deshaun Watson, perhaps, well, then obviously it would signal they can't reunite with Brady. So I was starting to get a sense that I knew at some point he was going to play. And I just didn't think that was as far-fetched as a lot of people want to make it seem. Because when I was at the Super Bowl, it was picking up a little bit of steam out there. I just kind of casually mentioned it to Deebo Samuel. He's like, whoa, if we play with the GOAT, I'd love to play with the GOAT. I'm like, I know you got Jimmy G. I know you have Trey Lance. He's like, it's Tom Brady. But at this point, it's not going to be – I don't think it's going to be one of those uncovered secrets that's going to come out, because it's best kept behind closed doors. Now, if he plays out, I think there's going to be a restructure. There's got to be something done with him contractually to help benefit the Buccaneers in this free agency period. And that may be adding on some voidable years or adding on another year. So depending on how his contract situation is figured out, is resolved, there still could be that sentiment, that thought that he may want to finish out his career. But then you look at it from, do you want to go at his age, learn a whole new playbook somewhere else and try and win? one more time. I think it's difficult thing to do, but he's a guy who does otherworldly things all the time. So
Yeah,
right now he's a Buccaneer. So we'll go with that.
he had such a tough time adapting to that Tampa Bay playbook. Oh, how'd that work out? Yeah, they won a Super Bowl. So I don't doubt for a millisecond that he could do it. But here's the one thing I had that I continue to come back to about this whole he wants to go out to San Francisco, finish off his career. Tampa wasn't letting him go. He was under contract. They did a renegotiation last year, too, which I made this point with John earlier in the show. If Brady wanted the ability to go free agent, you do what Jason Kelsey did. You put a $30 million poison pill in so that Tampa can't, that they have to blow up the contract and they have to let you become a free agent. You didn't do that. So you knew he was under contract to them for another year, and they didn't want to go. Arians, Light, everybody involved was, well, we're leaving the light on for Tom. Tom's still our guy. We're hoping that Tom changes his mind and comes back. They were never moving on from Brady, so he wasn't getting to San Francisco.
Yeah, the only way, Joe, the only way that could have happened is if they replaced them with Deshaun Watson or somebody so expensive, and then mid-July he says, I'm coming back. Then what are they going to do? You're not going to keep Brady and Deshaun Watson. But that didn't happen. That didn't play out. But that was the thinking, and that could be the only way. I didn't think they were going to move on from him and hand it over to Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask. It's just, as Bruce Arians said, bad business. It wouldn't have been smart business for them.
Yeah. And speaking of smart business, are you surprised at all, Rob, that things went Deshaun Watson's way on Friday in South Texas? No criminal charges, so that's off the table. Still got to deal with all those civil allegations, but yeah, that's not going to impact his ability to play in the NFL. NFL suspension still looming. Teams are lining up. I mean, over a dozen. Does that surprise you? Because I know Joe Banner had written that earlier in the week, last week, Rob, that he pegged the Eagles as the favorite to get Deshaun Watson. One of the reasons he cited was his choices will now be limited. They're not limited. If anything, they're increasing and increasing and increasing. Is that a bit of a surprise to you?
Well, John, we know teams need elite quarterbacks, right? That's how you win in the NFL. You need an elite quarterback. So once the criminal proceedings are not going to move forward, that opens him up to a lot more teams. Now, I know there's a lot of interest from various teams, and they're all doing their due diligence, and that's what you need to do. But are the reports of so many teams interested in him necessarily accurate? We also got to take a step back and think, where are those reports coming from? Well, they're not coming from the team. Like, if I'm interested in Deshaun Watson, I'm not leaking it to my favorite NFL reporter. Hey, we're interested in Deshaun Watson, because you don't want the price to go up. You don't want it's a competitive disadvantage. So any of that stuff comes from the agents and the team itself. And Houston, of course, is going to want people to think, 18 teams are interested in anybody who doesn't have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert is going to be interested in. So there's a lot of that's put out there. Now, the realistic options for him, I think Carolina is one. Now, we know Pittsburgh has come out and said very strongly that they're not going to be interested in him. So Carolina, New Orleans, I thought Tampa was going to be a favorite until Brady came back. And the Eagles, of course, who there was a report this weekend, right, that said the Eagles aren't interested. Well, of course, the Eagles are going to tell whoever's going to be willing to listen that they're not interested, because it's going to create an awkward situation if they can't land Deshaun Watson and they actively pursued him, and now they have to welcome Jalen Hurts back with open arms. So, there's a lot of that, and you've been around long enough. You know all this already. There's a lot of that stuff out there that's misinformation, media manipulation. I do think there are many teams that are going to be trying to do their homework and see what they can do as far as trading for Deshaun Watson, and sitting down with him would make the most sense. Before you make a trade of that magnitude, bringing him in, sitting him down, talking to him eye to eye, face to face. Hey, what's all this about? You're not going to be in criminal court, but you still got these civil cases. This isn't 1, 2, or 3. This is 20 plus women. What happened? and they need to hear it. If I'm an owner, I need to hear it straight from Deshaun Watson's mouth.
Well, he's going to, as a matter of fact, be deposed in some of those civil cases this week, so we will get more information on that. Do want to ask about one team you didn't add to the mix on the Deshaun Watson pursuit trail, Seattle. They just traded Russell Wilson. I kept fighting off people who told me all year that, if they trade Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll's going to walk away because he's going to want no part of a rebuild. 71 years old. He watched the combine. Pete Carroll is one of the most energetic coaches in the National Football League. I don't care how old he is. He acts like he's 30. If he's 71, oh, so what? Who cares? I said he's going to be back coaching the team no matter who the quarterback is. But I'm sure it would be preferential if they could get another franchise quarterback immediately after they traded one. They've got the capital that they got from Denver to get involved. Think Deshaun Watson would play well in Seattle?
I think 100% they're interested for sure. And like you said, they got the draft assets. They're better equipped than most teams and maybe even so than all teams to go after him. It's going to come down to that no trade clause. And is he willing to waive it to go there? If he has a conversation with Russell Wilson about Seattle and the makeup and what's happening there and the rebuild, he may not want to. I think with Deshaun Watson is his decision's going to come down to he holds a lot of he holds the no trade value and the no trade clause, and because of that, he's going to want to make it. He's going to want to pick the best environment for him. Now we know last year he was willing to waive it to go to Miami. They didn't make that deal. He's got to look around Carolina, the New Orleans, Seattle. New Orleans is in a little bit of transition too without Sean Payton. Carolina's been pretty bad. They got a nice defense. They got maybe a piece. What are they going to do with Christian McCaffrey? I think Seattle's going to be in the mix. Those teams are going to have to woo him a little bit. They're going to have to convince him as much as he's going to have to convince them to make that for the PR hit that they're going to take from a significant amount of their fan base. I did see a poll when it was one of the Buccaneers beat writers put it up, and it was overwhelming support in Tampa. I think different fan bases are going to view this differently. I haven't seen any in Philly. You guys would know better than me, but I think that would be overwhelmingly negative in Philly if it were to be bringing in Deshaun Watson. Seattle, I think, would be closer maybe to a 60-40 situation. So that's certainly an option. He's got at least one piece in DK Metcalf. He's got Tyler Lockett. The interesting name, guys, is Colin Kaepernick throwing his name right out there in the mix. Tells Tyler Lockett, I'm going to be there tomorrow. So I'm like, all right, Tyler Lockett's on the Seahawks. They looked into Colin Kaepernick before. I'm going to be there tomorrow. Let's get together and we'll throw. So I just reached out to one of Colin's representatives. I'm like, is this anything official? The Seahawks bringing him in, and they said nothing official. He's just doing this on his own.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Colin's been out of the game so long. You talk about Deshaun Watson. I mean, one of the reasons, the Houston's trying to play this leverage game, that we have some leverage in the fact that we can make him sit another year. And the last thing Deshaun Watson wants to do is sit 2 years, and he's at the apex of his career, 27, 28 years old at that point. All of a sudden it would become diminishing returns. But I do want to steer you back here to Philly, Rob, and Deshaun Watson to kind of wrap that up. Are you surprised at all, considering the way Jeffrey Lurie has always thought about the modern NFL and what you need to be consistently successful? And that's a high-octane passing game, a very effective passing game. And you couple that with Deshaun Watson willing to meet now with certain suitors, Carolina, Seattle, among them. Are you surprised the Eagles aren't kicking down the door? And maybe they are behind the scenes, as you mentioned. Is it a little bit of a surprise to you that this team is hemming and hawing a little bit?
No, because John, I don't think they're not kicking down the door. I think that they're trying. I think they're trying. They're going to try and do this as quietly as possible. I think there's certainly interest in Deshaun Watson from their end. I personally wouldn't do it. I would keep Jalen Hurts and try him out for another year and trade one of those 3 picks and try and get more picks next year, and maybe use 2 of them on defense and try and get somebody or some defensive help, some players in free agency. But I do think the Eagles are going to, as secretly and as quietly as possible, continue to pursue Deshaun Watson to the point where they won't be out of the running until another team secures his services and makes that deal. I don't feel there's an urgency for the Eagles because they have a better quarterback situation than the other teams who are in the mix. They have a guy who led them to the playoffs last year. He was inconsistent. The season didn't end well in the playoffs, but I think there's some hope that maybe with enough more seasoning, more development, more players around him, they still don't have a final answer in their mind on Jalen Hurts. And I know that many in the fan base have come to the conclusion he can't lead them to the promised land, but I think that is still a question that they have. So they don't have that necessary urgency to be able to go out there. And plus, the awkwardness of publicly pursuing Deshaun Watson is something why this will stay backdoor as much as you can in this day and age.
All right, Maaddi, man, I want to ask you about legalized tampering, which starts in a couple hours, as a matter of fact, or less than 2 hours, as a matter of fact now. The teams with the most cap space in the NFL, all you got to do is make one move, and then you can change it drastically. Like the Cowboys now actually have more cap space than the Eagles because they traded Amari Cooper yesterday. So one move can drastically shift who's got cap space and who doesn't. But the Eagles are in the top half of the NFL. They've got flexibility, certainly more flexibility than they did last year when they had the $33 million Carson Wentz dead cap hit on their cap. Will they be a player at any position at the top of the market? And when I say top of the market, I mean highest paid, second highest paid, third highest paid in just this free agency market. Will the Eagles be a player on that level, or are they going to be shopping at the bargain basement bin to fill as many holes as they have on this team right now?
I think the Eagles' DNA is that if they are going to be in the top 1, 2 at any position, it'll be defensive line. They don't really need to pursue offensive linemen. They're good there. They have depth there. I think it'd be an edge rusher, and whether that's Chandler Jones or somebody else, I think that's the only way you see the Eagles spending a whole lot of money and making a big splash. You saw a couple of years ago they were willing to put down a ton of money for Javon Hargrave, and last year, he really proved it. So I think that's the position. If they're going to go and bring in a guy, another weapon, we've heard the Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy. A wide receiver, he's not going to command top of the market dollars, and it makes sense for this team where they are with the flexibility they have, the draft picks that they have, not to be overspending in free agency and to try and play it as wisely and as smartly as possible. And if that means bargain basement, middle of the road guys, if it means making some trades, if it's moving around some of those draft picks for guys who can help you now, but getting some picks later. To me, they're not going to be a splash team unless it's making that move for Deshaun Watson. I don't think we're going to see the Eagles making a huge, big splash, although Chandler Jones would certainly be a guy, I think, who fits that description of, hey, big move impacts the salary cap too. A big move like that would impact the salary cap. But there's always ways, and they're good at it, to where they can bring somebody in, a high-ticket item, and finagle the cap well enough to give them some more flexibility.
Is it sort of a bit of a contradiction, Rob, when the Eagles say, and we know part of it is lip service and part of it is what you have to do because you have to guard against. If you are trying to make that splash with Deshaun Watson, you have to be realistic and say we can't lose this kid. We can't lose Jalen Hurts as well. And you say things like, we want to build up around Jalen Hurts. But then you still have that mentality, what you just spoke of, well, you want to be cost effective. You want to do this. Well, if you have that young quarterback under a very short time, where you can build other parts of your roster with higher paying players. Isn't that what the Eagles are talking about? And is that contradiction something that's just the business of doing football, or is there more to it?
But when you look at this free agency market, are there those guys that you think, though, that you can spend that kind of money on as far as on the offensive side to help Jalen Hurts? Now, there is potentially in Christian McCaffrey, a running back who could become available. Would that be somebody that it's not a free agent move, it's a trade, it's somebody – I would be very leery and very wary of making a move for a guy who's as oft injured as Christian McCaffrey. But I understand what you're saying, because this is a time to take advantage of having a quarterback who has a second-round pick contract like Jalen Hurts, and that's when you can bring in other pieces. But Odell Beckham Jr. is coming off an ACL. You're not going to go overspend for somebody like that. And Chris Godwin got franchise tagged. So I think if there was the right guy who they feel is going to be able to take this from a 9-win team and impact them to 11 or 10 or 11, I think they'd be willing to do it. I think they've always shown a willingness to spend in certain areas, right? They'll certainly do it on the O-line. They'll certainly do it on the D-line. I still don't think they'll do it at linebacker. I don't know what they're going to do there. They may go get a couple veteran pieces. Hey, Jordan Hicks is available. How did it end with Jordan Hicks? Is there a way that relationship can be resolved and you can bring him back? If he doesn't have many other options, he still wants to play football. He's a good dude. I know he can certainly play the game a little bit, but I don't see splash move at linebacker. But it's something that they have to look at. Hey, we got a guy in Jalen who is not killing our cap like some of these other teams have with quarterbacks who are taking up such a high percentage of their cap. We can try and supplement in other areas and not kill ourselves.
All right, Maaddi, man, since we're talking about so many ex-Cardinals, bring back Hicks, Chandler Jones, I'm going to go there as with a guy who I just love as a player, but I'm not sure he's a fit. He's you can put him at a spot that the Eagles are willing to spend for, but is that his true position? Hassan Reddick is basically a outside linebacker / defensive end. He's a little smallish for defensive end, but he's played defensive end and played it pretty damn well. He actually was better against the run this past year, grading out, than he was at getting to the quarterback. He's a free agent. He's only 27. Chandler Jones, 32. Von Miller, 33. So it comes down for me to the defensive coordinator saying, oh, I can make the defense work with this guy. I can see how I'll be able to use him and place him and get the most out of him. Is Hassan Reddick coming back to Philadelphia a chance, or is just a non-starter because it's a non-fit? No, did Maaddi freeze up on us?
Temple Kid, I think when you got talent. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
You got me. Hey, anytime you can bring back a Temple Kid and you can look at a guy who he led his team in sacks last year, you can try and make talent. And this is what we were told last year. This isn't right. We're not here we don't have a scheme and a system. We fit our scheme and our system to the talents and skills of our players. Well, now you're 1 year into the scheme and the system. And as you said, the fit may not necessarily be great. I think if you have the opportunity to bring in somebody at 27 years old as opposed to 32 or 33, and you can do it and you can have him here for the longer term, you try and make that fit. You try and make it work. But I don't see Carolina, if they're going to get Deshaun Watson, they're going to have to figure out their cap issues. That's a guy they want to target and bring back. In my mind, and it might be difficult to try and pry him away. So it depends on what's going on with the Panthers. But they got to look at him. they got to look at him. They need some help getting to the quarterback. That's how you win with it. We all know this. You win by having that elite quarterback and being able to bring down that elite quarterback.
All right, Rob, last one from me. I can't let you go. And first, I want to say, everybody read Rob. Obviously, the great Rob Maaddi, AP NFL writer, host of the AP Pro Football Podcast, his Faith on the Field show. You can check that out at faithonthefieldShow.com. You talked about franchise quarterbacks. Nobody was closer to Carson Wentz in town here than you. I know you've had to use the mute button on occasion with some of this vitriol against Carson Wentz. I thought one thing you said kind of resonated with me, and I've written about this before, is Carson's kind of naturally an introverted person, and he plays a position in the NFL where you have to be a leader by nature, and a lot of that is an extrovert's nature. And Jalen Hurts is the perfect example of this. He tries to engage the entire team. He tries to go out of his way to get everybody involved. Anybody who's been around an NFL team knows the quarterback doesn't spend a lot of time around the defense other than on the field. So if you're in the locker room, you're in the cafeteria, you got to make an effort. Carson was just introverted. He went about his business. And I think some people took that the wrong way. Overall, though, he's a good guy. He's a good human being, and people have made him out to be this villain because he didn't have success on the field, which I think translates more to the injuries than anything else. Washington Commanders, Rob. Good move, bad move. Does Carson Wentz have anything left?
I think it's a good move for Washington, for the organization culturally, from the standpoint of the issues that they have with Dan Snyder, all of the investigations and everything else. You're bringing in someone in Carson Wentz who could stabilize a culture of community within that locker room. Now, that said, on the field, I don't know how much he's going to make a difference. I don't think Carson Wentz, for about a 9, 10, 11 game period, was a very good quarterback this year. For about 3, 4, 5 games, he wasn't very good. He was pretty poor. All said and done, 27-7. You can look at numbers and make them tell you whatever you want them to tell you. And it's not a horrible season. He's not a garbage quarterback, not a Pro Bowler either. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback. His leadership skills are certainly questionable for all those reasons you stated, John. He's shy. He's quiet. He's introverted. He's awkward. He's uncomfortable in the spotlight. He doesn't do a great job of relating to everyone on the football team. One of the things that I realized about Tom Brady being down here in Tampa is his leadership ability. Like, guys just love him, whether he's talking to a 22-year-old who's young enough to now be his son, and he plays special teams, to if it's another veteran guy. And I don't know that Carson's personality allows him to be the leader he needs to be. And I think sometimes, I said this before, his shyness, his quietness, his introvertedness gets translated as arrogance or aloofness, when he's not arrogant, he's not aloof, but it just comes across the wrong way. And other things about him and his personality and his lifestyle sometimes doesn't fit people, and he's not their cup of tea. He's not going to go out and chug beers with linemen. He's not going to go out and do shots with receivers or anyone. He's not going to be dropping F-bombs in a video, pregame hype video. That's not what he does. It's not him. And for some, they'll look at that and go, well, how can you be a leader and you're not relating, you're not hanging out, and none of that's bad. Now, I'm not trying to criticize anybody who does that, but people lead in different ways. I mean, Phillip Rivers didn't drop the F-bomb. He said dadgummit 1,000 times. One of the funniest. I don't know how with a straight face, man. Phillip Rivers was funny. Nobody could talk trash better than that guy without using the curse word. It's impressive to me. But I just think there's aspects of Carson's personality, values, and system and beliefs that prevent him from being the leader that most people look at. Now, on the other side of that, anytime you hear anyone say anything about him on the record from a teammate standpoint, it's always positive. Whether it was Michael Pittman now and was it Darius Leonard and some other guys on the Colts. And anytime you hear anything negative and criticism, it's always anonymous. And, that makes you wonder.
All right, last one, Rob. And I readily admit my sources are not McMullen's sources or your sources. You guys are truly tied in. I have a couple little contacts. A source told me that it may very well have been Rob Maaddi who bid over $500,000 for Tom Brady's last football thrown as a touchdown in the National Football League. Oops, he's unretired. Oh, wow. How much that? 500,000 and change? Do you want to confirm or deny that you were involved in this, Maaddi?
I can confirm that I did not even bid the change part, the 18,000. It was 518, I believe. I wouldn't even bid the 518 for that football. But I will say this was pretty cool. Last night, Tom Brady's coming back. My kids are playing in the room. I mentioned before how they just started liking football, my two little girls, and all because of Tom and the Bucks here. And they just were thrilled and excited. Oh, I can't believe. So seeing football through their eyes for the first time and their joy and their excitement was different for me. And it was a pretty cool experience.
We're glad that you didn't bid the 518 or the 18. We're glad to know the girls are getting into football. You can make them Eagle fans, Maaddi. There's going to be some parenting involved.
That's going to be tough with Tom Brady. That's going to be tough.
I'll tell you where I'm headed to right now, guys. They thought they could get rid of me. I'm on my way to Clearwater. There's some Phillies baseball going on.
Yeah.
I know I'm an NFL writer now, but hey, baseball is my first love. I'm about to go catch me some Phillies action.
I've done Clearwater with Rob Maaddi. It is a good time. RM, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for hopping on. We'll get you back on in a couple of weeks.
Thanks,
Anytime,
Rob.
boys. Thank you.
Rob Maaddi here with us, Associated Press lead NFL writer here with us on Birds 365. All right, ran late with Rob. Oh, shoot, we're going to have just about this much time left to put a bow on the show. Come back.